Tampa's Architectural Review Commission. Welcome, everyone. My name is Zachary Greco, Chair of the Commission. If you're here to present a project, you will have limited time to make your presentation, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you will need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. Commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. Your project should be presented in the following order: site plan, elevations, architectural details, and wall sections. Staff will then present the staff report, and we will then ask the public for any comments. Following the presentation, the commissioners will be asking questions in the same order as the presentation. Please state and spell your name clearly if you are here to speak for or against a project. Your time will be limited to 3 minutes, so take some time now to summarize your comments, because 3 minutes go by very quickly. Following public comment, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for a rebuttal. The public hearing will then be closed. The only comments which will be allowed after the public hearing is closed will be in response to any questions from the commissioners. Commissioners will then discuss the case and will make their decision based upon the City Ordinance, Chapter 27 of the City Zoning Code, the Design Guidelines, the Secretary of the Interior Standards, the Historic Preservation Development Review Comments, HPDRC, and the testimony given at this public hearing. The ARC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibilities. Owners and agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and/or approvals. If you haven't already done so, please silence all cell phones. At this point, I will ask my fellow commissioners, starting on my right, to introduce themselves.
Susan Klaus-Smith, architect.
Shauna Boyd, interior designer.
Amber Dickerson, urban planner.
Stephen Sutton, architect.
We are also joined tonight by staff of Dennis Fernandez, Ron Villa, Elaine Lund, Beverly Jewisak, and legal Kamaria Pettis-Mackel. Would a commissioner like to make a motion for the minutes of September 14th and September 15th?
I make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from Monday, September 14th public hearing and the Tuesday, September 15th public hearing.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion passes. Thank you.
Good morning, or excuse me, good evening, Commissioners. Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. Just with a couple announcements for you. I do have the September list of ARC staff approvals that I will place into the record at this time. Secondly, we will be having an additional meeting on October 7th to handle our existing cycle of cases, so we look forward to seeing you on Wednesday. Lastly, we have been organizing a commissioner workshop for October the 22nd at 6 p.m. It will be a virtual workshop. The workshop is really a collaborative with the Barrio Latino Commission and the Architecture Review Commission, so you'll get to meet some of your fellow commissioners on the Barrio as well that evening. And we will be dealing with a number of topics that will provide you a agenda for in advance of the meeting, mainly focusing on parliamentary procedures, determining variance hardships, and applying the design guidelines. So we hope to see you on the virtual hearing, and if you have any issues with that or have questions, feel free to reach out to staff in advance. With that, we'll now move on to the conflicts of interest and ex parte communication, and our legal counsel will handle that. Thank you.
Good evening, Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. Can any of the commissioners please state on the record whether or not they have any conflicts of interest regarding any of the items that are listed on the agenda?
I have
None.
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Additionally, can the commissioners please confirm whether or not they've had any ex parte communication regarding any of the items that are listed on the agenda?
I have not.
No, ma'am.
None.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Villa, staff with Historic Preservation. Moving forward down the agenda, under continuations, we have one reflected for this evening, which is ARC 20-390 for the address of 19 01 West Chaton Avenue. It's being continued to the October 7th, 2020 public hearing at 6 p.m. The reason for that is to balance the agenda. We had a lot of cases on Monday night, so we moved this one to Wednesday to balance the agenda. So if we could get a motion for that, please.
I'll make a motion to continue ARC 20-390 for the property at 1901 West Chaton Avenue to the Wednesday, October 7th public hearing at 6 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion passes.
At this time, we're ready for the swear-in. Everybody that wishes to testify this evening, please stand up and raise your right hand. Ms. Juzak will swear us in. I do. Thank you. At this time, we're ready for the first case.
Good evening, Commissioners. Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation staff. The first case this evening on the agenda is ARC 20-366, also rezoning case number 20-78 for 308 East 7th Avenue in the Tampa Heights Historic District. This is one of the older structures on the very south end of the Tampa Heights Historic District. I'll put up the area map there. So as you can see, the green arrow is pointing to where this property is at the south end of the Tampa Heights Historic District. This is on 7th Avenue, and the blue line represents where the boundaries of the National Register Historic District for Tampa Heights are, and the red line, of course, is where the local historic district boundaries are. This is the 1920s Sanborn map of the area. You see the red boundary for the local district there. Again, the property in green, of course, is the subject property. You'll see, note that there were two buildings to the west of this that are no longer exist, but the property to the right, to the east, is still there, and we'll show you that a bit later here. This is the aerial map, present-day aerial map of 308 East 7th Avenue. And this is the front facade, the south side of the property in question. This is its west side, the west elevation, looking at it from the vacant lot to the west. And this is the east side of it, a little tighter on that side, harder to get a good view there, but this is the driveway that's all along that east side. And looking again at the west property, that's it there, the vacant property that goes all the way over to Morgan Street. This is the property here at the corner of 7th and Jefferson. It's a very lovely home. And then across the street to the south are the, this is outside of the historic district on the south side of the street, the Mobley Park Homes, I believe. Here we are looking east across this, down the street. So on your right side here, you can see those apartments that were just shown in the prior photograph, and on the left side would be the subject property site. And then look in the other direction to the west. It's a little difficult to see in this picture, but if you were able to look beyond the end of the street there, or toward the end of the street, you would see why they call it the Heights. This is there's actually a bit of a decline there, and as you go toward the water, you really get a good sense of how that actually is a higher elevation than in, say, downtown or other parts of central Tampa. This is the rear of the property. You see, it's had some additions and enclosures. You know, there's also an existing portion of a building now on the site that's used as a shed. This is the property abutting to the east, and you can get a sense here from these two pictures how development in this area has been established such that all the parking's in the rear of the alley. And then, of course, this is the property to the west again. And then just looking down the alley, this is looking in the east direction down the alley and the west direction here, again with the parking to the rear. So this application, as I stated, is for a recommendation for a rezoning. So as the applicant presents this case, please remember that your charge as this board is to make a recommendation, to review and to make a recommendation regarding reasonable land use changes to the extent necessary to preserve the historical integrity and appearance of the locally designated historic district in this case. With that, I'd like the applicant to come forward and present his application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Check. Good evening. Ricky Pederica, Dark Moss, 308 East 7th Avenue. I have been sworn. Let's see. In 2015, this property was rezoned. It had been zoned in '99 for an office village with some of the properties around the area. And in 2015, it was rezoned again through PD to include a religious place of religious assembly. And we purchased it this year in February and realized that while they this whole time had an entitlement for an office use, they never addressed a parking requirement associated with the building being used fully as office. So our request today is mainly to address the parking requirements associated with using this building in its current state fully as an office building. We're proposing a few waivers to address some of the existing approved nonconformities, such as the existing fences and the existing shed that Ms. Lund showed. We would like to consider expanding that shed. The paint makes it look like it's in better condition than it is. And while that's not proposed currently, we want to expressly show that in the PD application. We're also working with Ms. Lund to reconstruct this rear porch deck and to provide accessible ramp for the parking or for the office uses that we're considering. But not much else changes. So this is the existing facade, effectively no change proposed. This is the rear facade. This porch and stairs are rebuilt almost exactly as they're shown with more compatible railings, which I'm working with staff on getting that right currently. The west facade, no change proposed. And the east facade, no change proposed. So I respectfully request your recommendation of approval for this, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. At this point, staff will now present the staff report.
Commissioners, Elaine Lund. Staff finds that this application is consistent with the section of the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances in accordance with Chapter 20, Section 27, 113, A2J, I had very few conditions that I requested from the applicant, mostly just to summarize the rezoning request and provide an overview of any changes to the site plan. I believe he did that thoroughly. I'd also like to note that Ryan Manassi from our planning department is here and he's the planner assigned to the rezoning case. So if you have any questions regarding that, he'll be available to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we'll open the hearing to any public comment, either for or against. All right, seeing none, the commissioners will now begin asking questions. And then I guess maybe before we ask questions, could you put up the sheet that you had for the waivers so that we're able to see that as well? Then would any commissioners like to begin asking questions?
Approved in the 99
Excuse me, hold on just 1 second. We're at the point where the commissioners are asking questions and then they'll address you.
I apologize.
That's okay.
I have no questions.
If we could get the opinion of staff who's here assigned to the rezoning.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ryan Manassi with Planning and Development. Your question?
I was just wondering if you could give your feedback on the case.
As of this point, the staff, the revised site plan was just resubmitted, so staff doesn't have its final determination on the case for planning, design, and development coordination. There are some waivers being requested, as Mr. Pederico pointed out, but I would not feel comfortable giving you a consistent or inconsistent finding at this point without doing my full review before my staff report comes out.
Okay, thank you.
Can we look at the site plan again, please, sir? And I do have a few questions. There is a request for a waiver to reduce the parking from 13 to 6 spaces, which is over 50% reduction. Can you point out all the spaces? And I also noted there was a prior waiver to allow for parking on grass as well as paved areas. So if you could just go over what currently exists and what's going to be changed, if any, in terms of the parking, because that is a component of the waivers being requested.
I'll start with the grass parking. That was a part of the 2015 case. I guess grass parking is permitted for a place of religious assembly. So they included that at that time, but had since built the existing concrete pad that we're including in the, I'll draw. So in 2020, that existed as concrete, and there's no real relevant grass parking provision
Okay.
anymore.
So currently you have 3 compact, 2 standard, and 1 ADA compliant. Is that correct?
Correct. We have Morgan, Oak, and Jefferson on the west, north, and east side of the property that both have very wide right-of-ways that I personally currently street park on now. So part of our justification is that there's ample street parking available. Unfortunately, 7th, I think this is a collector road, and we can't park on that. Not shown is tandem spaces in this area. It gets a little tricky with the mixed-use component that we're proposing on whether a office use can use a tandem space. It can be used for multifamily, but if it's office, we have a waiver to include it, but if there's mixed use, then which does the tandem space count for?
Right. So in follow-up to some of the things that you're saying, can you please go over the various uses that are planned for this mixed-use property then?
Well, this is not included in an enlargement. We provided some breakdowns
Can we zoom into that, please, staff? That chart that he's pointing to?
We provided, let's say, a parking calculation if it were completely office, if it were 4 3-bedroom units, if it was a complete religious facility, and then some other mixes. So with the intent of trying to maintain some flexibility in what we do, because we acknowledge that it can be used for several different things, but all are addressed with the parking reduction request, the current parking reduction request.
All right, thank you, sir.
Commissioner Sutton, do you have any questions?
I have no question at this time.
So looking at this chart that you have of the mixed-use blend breakdown, one of your options, which I believe is option 5, states that if you were to do part of a office and then multifamily of 3 units, that those 3 units alone would require 6 parking spots. So what would be the philosophy, I guess, where if you only have those 6 parking spots with one of those being handicapped, how would you handle that for a multifamily plus an office? If are the spots going to be reserved? Are they?
The actual, say, shared parking aspect of that, we have control over, being the landlord. But separately, while not counted in the actual count, there is an existing driveway with the spatial allowances for multi-tandem parking spaces. They're just not included. So we currently park in this area 2 and 3 cars deep during the day with the office use imposed. So though we're not including them and we're requesting a waiver, this is not, we just aren't allowed to park beyond the front of the building.
Correct. Could you go to the sheet that you had of the waivers, please? So the waiver number 1 that you mentioned on here was you want to vest the existing shed and the existing fences. So the fences looks like that's going to remain as is, but on the shed, on the site plan, you did mention that you want to expand that shed?
Yes. Because it is leaning 10 degrees or so, and it is rotting at the one base. With the 3-foot overhangs of the existing structure, we can't really expand when we need to provide a 5-foot setback. So it's addressing partially a desire to expand that in a very limited way, but also to address that setback requirement.
So do you have you would need a waiver then for that as well?
That hopefully is built into the number 2, requiring or converting that each setback into a wall-to-wall setback. The reason for this request, if I can depict it, the eaves are pretty well separated, so we hope that won't be too much of a problem to have them kind of more nested together.
Is there a reason you I guess maybe scripted the waiver for that to say the separation between the primary and accessory structures for wall to wall and not your eaves in that manner to allow for future growth?
Yeah, I think so, yes. I mean, it was a waiver from the eave. It was an attempt at waiving the eave to eave and substituting it with a wall-to-wall setback measure.
I have a question for staff then on this one. So this waiver number 2, would that allow for future, this maybe shed be expanded, but also anything additional?
Ryan Manassi with Planning and Design and Development Coordination. So when we're talking about the waivers, and this was discussed at DRC, the number 1 and 2 waivers, 27-290, Those are from the accessory structure setbacks and the requirements for those. They may not even be a waiver on this PD, because as a PD, you establish your own setbacks. As shown in the revised plan that was submitted recently, we advise the client to show the setbacks for the primary structure as well as the accessory structure, which they did in this revised plan that's still being reviewed for final comments. However, it's okay for them to be on now because there can be minor modification between first and second reading of the PD approval. And if they do not make it to a waiver language, we would simply just cut them out of the final reading. But I think to further answer your question, if he's showing it on the site plan as that outline of the accessory structure, that would be allowed to be placed there. Does that answer your question?
It does. I guess just my question turns into the size of that accessory structure. It's, as a single-story structure, there is that space between the eaves and the gutters and kind of that overhang, but as that gets taller, does that become an issue, in which case we don't want to look at that as a waiver and maybe more of where that footprint actually sits?
Well, I believe the footprint is what it's shown. As far as our accessory structure code in 27290, we do go to eve to eve for that, and that's, I believe, why the client is requesting that eve to eve separation through a waiver. But again, what we're going to want to see on the PD site plan is exactly what's shown as the outline of the building, not necessarily the eaves. Now they would have to meet fire code and anything else that would apply through building code, and the ARC for any kind of design criteria facade approval.
Okay. And then could you put that sheet up one more time? I apologize. And then the only other one that you didn't maybe discuss was number 4. Could you just quickly go through that?
Because the existing pad that I outlined exists, currently the only landscape area that's left are these small little pinch points, 3 to 4 feet on either side. We can't accommodate trees in that. So the request is to just tidy up and relieve us of that, rather than tear out concrete. That requires us to tear out parking spaces. And, we just don't think that is important in this case.
Okay.
For this case.
Are there any additional questions from the commissioners for either the applicant or staff? Okay. The applicant is allowed 5 minutes for a rebuttal.
I appreciate it, but no rebuttal necessary.
All right, thank you. At this point, we will close the public hearing, and the commissioners will now begin discussing the case.
I'll start myself right now. Personally, I don't see a particular impact either on the existing building or its site fabric. I don't have an objection to the proposal of cleaning up this existing zoning with a new PD.
I concur. It's a challenging site with an existing structure on it, so no matter what kind of use is in there, it's going to be challenging, so I don't have any issues.
I don't have any comment.
I have none either.
Okay. Would a commissioner like to make a motion?
Move that the variance request for case ARC 2366 for the property located at 30.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry, reason.
This is Kamaria from the legal department. This is I think you said variance, but it's a recommendation to city council.
Sorry, my brain's not right place. Okay.
It's at the bottom on, I don't know, it's on the side where the certificate of appropriateness is, at the bottom, recommendation to city council.
Oh, sorry, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, starting again. Move to recommend city council approval of ARC 2366 for the property located at 308 East 7th Avenue for the proposed rezoning from commercial
From PD to PD.
oh my gosh, I'm slaughtering this, PD to PD with the following, with no conditions.
Correct. And then can you state just elaborate.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm discombobulated.
And it's,
Because the application is consistent with the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances, Chapter 27, 113A2J. And the recommendation is reasonable land use change for this site.
I'm sorry, but do we have to add in the REZ 20-38
yes, I was going to ask her to,
as
yeah,
well?
for clarification, it's RE,
It's okay.
Yes, and I'll add in this is for REZ 2078. My apologies.
I second the motion, as long as the motion is clear.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioners, our next item on the agenda this evening is a request for an ad valorem historic preservation tax exemption, Part 2. This is located at 220 East Madison Street in downtown Tampa. This is a local historic landmark that was designated in 2018. This is a unique property. It's, I believe, the only sort of, it's the most recently built historic property that we have designated as a local historic landmark. It's an excellent example of the international style, and I'll show you a few items here real quick. Okay, so this is the 1976 Sanborn map. It's obviously you would not have seen this on the 1920s Sanborn, but the property takes up this whole portion of this block on Madison Street and intersects with Franklin Avenue, and this is where the structure is located downtown. I'll give you an idea for reference there. I was going to show you where we are, but I think we're off the map down here. So City Hall is right here for your reference. This is Kennedy, and then Madison and North Franklin Street. And then this is the present-day aerial map of the subject site. And we have just a few exterior photos here. This is looking at the Madison Street elevations. There we go. And this is looking at the west side of the building. This is the stair tower that projects off the west side. And then on the east side of the building, you can see ground level there and the stair tower on the north side. And is there? And with that, I'll have the applicant begin her presentation. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Farrell, and I'm here as the owner's agent. The owner is Urban Core Holdings, and assisting me today is Marjorie Kegler, and she'll be at the easel. Since Elaine showed you the current conditions of the exterior, unless someone has questions about the exterior, I'm not going to redo Elaine's presentation. I will have one area of repair that I'll highlight on. As Elaine mentioned, 220 Madison was built in 1963 and is an international style building. The first international style building in downtown that has been listed in the National Register of Historic Places and designated as a historic landmark. And I'm pleased that the owners had the foresight to preserve it. And so it was designed by a very talented architect, known by many, Harry McEwen, FAIA. He was known for traditional architecture, but he could design in multiple vocabularies. So as buildings, as we know, office buildings these days, this building was one of the first here that was designed with a central core, a lobby core, and an elevator bank. And it was designed to be remodeled. So it was designed for commercial tenants from its 5th floor to its 12th floor. The first 3 floors were designed to house First Federal Savings and Loan, which include the bank lobby and associated offices. The 4th floor, which is the mechanical floor. So we'll be taking you through those floors. But before I do that, I'd like to mention some of the materials that the character-defining features of the building include its brick veneer facade, which has been maintained. The windows are the original windows with the clear aluminum frames, and that has been a real advantage to the owners because they did not have to replace those. They were in excellent condition, except for some reflective film that had extensive reflective film that was removed in the course of their renovations. So in terms of the exterior, someone can turn the Elmo on. When Urban Holdings started this process, the major repair area, there was a damage in the western stair tower to the brick veneer, and so that has been repaired to match the existing. And then so moving from there, Margie will point to where these photographs are taken as we work through the interior, and I'll be showing you the before rehabilitation, pre-construction, and then post-construction. So one after the other. So this is the main lobby on the first floor. This is the pre-construction. This is post-construction, same area. And let me just mention that the ceramic tile, the mirrored panels were not original. So basically the owners have taken this back to more or less original materials that are similar to what was their original. They also replaced the dark anodized storefront, which was not original, with the clear anodized storefront that matches the finish of the original storefront. So we're looking north in the lobby, and these rounded columns were not original. They were added during probably in around 1990 or so. So you'll see in the next image that those faux columns have been removed, as has been the mirrored panels at the top of the partitions. So moving to the 3rd floor. I'm moving to the 3rd floor because the Part 1 ad valorem application included no work on the 2nd floor. So we will be dealing with the 3rd floor through the top floor. So this is a typical elevator lobby. You'll see a few of these as I work through all the images, but floors, carpet, metal doors on the elevators, nothing too special. This is that same elevator post-construction. This is a typical office space. They were in various conditions when the owners acquired the property, and this is just one of them to show you what it looked like. So the office spaces changed multiple times, from 1963 to around 2017. So partitions were added and subtracted, wallpaper was added, vinyl wallpaper, carpet changed, so all the interior finishes changed, as is typical of a commercial office building. This is that same space post-construction. It is now the fitness room for this property. And let me say that the current use of the property from the 5th floor through the 12th is apartments. So the original corridor has been maintained, the elevator lobby has been maintained, ceiling heights have been maintained, and so forth. But behind those corridors, instead of office users, they are apartments aimed toward University of Tampa college students. And this is their fitness center. And this is a typical windowsill on the third level. It's aluminum, and this is pre-construction. And here we are again, post-construction. So basically everything that is significant in this building, mainly its skin, has been maintained. This is a lovely site as well, but typical of the building. Third floor lobby, third floor office, looking southeast. This is that same space post-rehabilitation. Another office area, open office area on the third floor, pre-construction. This is now a co-working space for the residents of the building. And just keeping sort of an open look to it as well. Same original ceiling height and compatible vinyl flooring. In fact, the original drawings called for vinyl flooring throughout the building. So in much of this you will see vinyl flooring. More of the third floor, another corner here, pre-construction. That same corner, post-construction. I'll show you just 2 images of the egress stairs. The only modification to these typically is that the railing change, because these railings do not meet current code. So that's pre-construction, and here we are post-construction. And these are all basically, their egress stairs are not used for general public use. So moving to the fourth floor is the mechanical floor, so that's why we skipped that. That's basically an indented area, which there are no changes except for some mechanical equipment within that space. So here we are on the 5th floor, looking at a typical corridor carpet, which had replaced vinyl at one point. These oak trims look like they might have been, early, but they probably date from something like around the 70s or 80s and are not original to the building. So this is that same level post-construction. Another view, 5th floor, another office space, pre-construction. That same space, it's apartment unit 506. Same windows there. This is a typical window on the every third window pivot, so this is a typical window pre-construction. Obviously you can see this one has an opaque film. And then here is the original window post-construction repaired. This is a pre-construction showing you the original Carrera marble sills, just plain slabs, unadorned, undecorated, which is typical of the international style. And here we are post-construction. So just repaired, and where any of those were missing, they were matched. This is a 6th floor corridor. Looked like these corridors on each floor resemble, they're basically this virtually the same floor to floor. Pre-construction, post-construction. Another 6th floor office space, pre-construction. The same area as an apartment, post-construction. Another 6th floor office, southeast corner, pre-construction, post-construction. All the windows repaired again. Ceiling heights original. 7th floor elevator lobby. Well, this is a thing of beauty. Fortunately, it's not going to be a joy forever, and at least not in that condition. And this is post-construction, same space, 7th floor. And this is a 7th floor office suite, pre-construction, that same area, post-construction. 8th floor elevator lobby, pre-construction, post-construction. Pre-construction area, northeast corner, 8th floor. Post-construction apartment number 405, 8th floor. 9th floor, elevator lobby, pre-construction. 9th floor, elevator lobby, post-construction. 9th floor, northeast corner, looking northwest. That same area turned into an apartment. And then we've got two views of this area. So this is unit 905, and this is apartment unit 903. 10th floor, elevator lobby, pre-construction, post-construction. 10th floor, corridor, pre-construction, post-construction. 10th floor, corner, northwest corner, pre-construction, post-construction. So I'm showing you all these because it's important for you to know that all of the important fabric on every floor has been retained. 10th floor, southeast corner, pre-construction, post-construction. 11th floor, there was a slight variation at the upper level, just 11th floor, little extra trim, not original. Pre-construction, post-construction. For the corridor, 11th floor, pre-construction, the same area, post-construction. Ceiling heights maintained, original hollow metal doors type, and flush door type maintained in all of the corridors. Again, a characteristic of the mid-century modern design. 11th floor, one of the typical offices. And none of these partitions, of course, were original to the building. That's pre-construction. This is that same area. It's apartment unit 1102, looking southeast. Obviously, we're looking at a kitchen area. And this is the 12th floor conference room, part of an office suite, pre-construction. And this is that same area, apartment number 1201, post-construction. And this is the same apartment looking in the opposite direction. And this is a break room in the pre-construction. And then this is the same area, post-construction, as part of a unit 1202 of an apartment. And that is all of the interior photographs of the building. And in summary, I'd like to say that the owner did maintain all of the important original fabrics, such as the brick veneer panels, the original windows, the black granite of the ground floor, the marble panels, and then appropriately repaired the damaged stairwell. I'd be happy to answer any questions, should you have them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
At this point, staff will now present the staff report.
Commissioners, Elaine Lund. Staff found that this application is consistent with the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation, which are the standards that we use to evaluate the ad valorem tax exemption applications.
Thank you. At this point, we will open the hearing to any public comment. All right, seeing none. The commissioners will now ask questions, starting Commissioner on my right.
I have no questions, thank you.
I have no questions.
No questions.
None whatsoever. Thank you.
I have no questions as well. Applicant is allowed 5 minutes for a rebuttal.
I'm happy to be here.
All right, we will close this portion of the public hearing. The commissioners will now begin discussing the case, or one can make a motion.
This is consistent with what we saw when they came before us for part one, and it's right on par with what we expected. So I have no issues or comments regarding it.
I move to approve the ad valorem tax exemption application part 2 for the plans presented at this public hearing in case number ARCT 20-02 for the property located at 220 East Madison Street for the rehabilitation of this property because based on the facts in the record, the proposed project is consistent with the Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation and Guidelines for Rehabilitating Historic Buildings.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Moving forward, the next case is ARC 20-283 for the address of 613 South Oregon Avenue. This is in the Hyde Park Historic District. The primary structure is a contributing structure that dates back to 1921. The zoning is RS 50. The request in front of you this evening is for a variance for north side yard setback from 7 foot to 5 foot with an encroachment of 2 feet for eaves and gutters. And if it moves forward, a certificate of appropriateness for an addition of 47 square feet. To bring to your attention some past action at this property. In August, this case was continued for the variance. And then in September, last month, there was a 2-2 tie vote. So at this time, I'm going to have legal discuss your options moving forward this evening.
Good evening, Kamaria Pettis-Knuckle from the City Attorney's Office. First, Commissioner Dickerson, did you have an opportunity to review the previous action or the previous meeting?
No, I did not.
You have not?
I do not. I'm sorry.
Okay. Can I have a brief moment, please?
Commissioners, since all the commissioners this evening have not reviewed the tape in advance or was present at a public hearing, the applicant at this time is going to go through a complete presentation. So all the information is in front of you to make your decision this evening regarding the variance.
We're going to do it as one, we're going to hear it as one continuous thing.
Open it up as one public hearing. I believe the certificate of appropriateness is a minor detail this evening. Focus on the variance first as they go through their presentation. Just briefly, I'll start with a photo presentation as we normally do, and then go into the variance. So this is the 1929 Sanborn map. Property in question is in the shaded green area. As a reference point, you have Swan to the south, you have Rome to the west, and you have Oregon to the east. You see the north arrow pointing up. This is a point of reference. Property in question is where the arrow is, and then you see it's to the north of the complex of Hyde Park Village. This is an overhead shot showing the property, which is here. Once again, you have Oregon and Swan to the south. This is part of Hyde Park Village. Looking at the primary structure, the variance that they're requesting is in this back area. It's in the northwest corner. Just kind of focusing on that area of the bump out would be over here. This is the front elevation, and this is the north facade. Moving to the south elevation, as it flanks Hyde Park Village, you see the parking for the complex. Some of the casings and period-appropriate windows, which are 1/1 wood windows. See the generous overhangs with the exposed rafter tails and the bracket. In the area question that they're doing the addition, this is the transition from the primary house, from the horizontal siding to grade. Moving to the second story portion. And lastly, just to show the relationship of the primary house, which is over here, and then you have the Hyde Park complex parking, and then you have On Swan, the restaurant, to the south. At this time, I'll have the agent address the board. This is to deal with the variance only.
And then, I'm sorry, Kamaria Pettismacher from the City Department for the variance. Just for clarification, you have 10 minutes for the variance request.
Okay, thank you. So, good evening. I just want to jump in first to what was mostly discussed at the very end of the last hearing, and then I'll go through the variance criteria again and some of the other photos that I presented. But just to discuss, the last thing that we were talking about at the hearing was, is there another place in the back of the house to put the proposed addition? And I'll show you why that is not the case. There is nowhere else. The location that we proposed is the best place to put it, really the only place to put it, because it causes the least amount of change to the existing house, to the roof line, to the doors, to the windows on the back of the house, and is going to be visually consistent with the house because there's already a bump out, and it's consistent with the craftsman style of the neighborhood. So again, here's the floor plan. This is where the washer and dryer is, and this is where the addition would go. Slightly out here, but also within the confines of the existing footprint. So I've taken some additional photos. Here is the back of the house. So the addition would go about here, so as to not interfere with the door. And this is a canopy that retracts, so you can see it's retracted in this photo, but what's important, I think, is the roof line here that is lower than the rest of the house. If we were to add the bump out, say here, for a washer and dryer for the laundry room, which itself is only going to be 47 square feet. However, that would take up a lot of space here because we're already relying on part of the existing footprint to put it here. Not only would we potentially have to remove this entire door, change that, it would change the flow of the house. The interior kind of goes from the front door all the way straight through to the back door. Or if we moved it this way, we would have to take at least one of these windows, move one of these windows, but also we would cut into this roof here. Putting it over here minimizes any intrusion into that, and as I'll show you in a few photos later, it would also look visually consistent with the existing elevations of the house. Here is where the pantry is that the washer and dryer are currently stuffed into. So as you can see, again, this is the door. It's very close to that, but the door to the proposed laundry room would be here. So there's no interference with the flow of the house, nor is there an interference with the door. Another photo, a few other photos that are new that I took to show the interior. The space is not that large between these two, so again, putting it here would not only interrupt these, but also the roof line, because this ceiling is high, and to match that, to stay consistent with the ceiling, it would definitely cut into that roof, right through the middle of it. And here's a close-up, again, of that roof, those beams, which would also have to be shifted. Again, as Mr. Vila was pointing out, this is the bump out is proposed here, right off of here, and there's a 6-foot fence, as you can see, existing here. It's totally opaque, separating Miss Mamie's house from Miss McLeany's home. And Miss McLeany, who is the neighbor, is in full support of this as well. So she not only is buffered from the proposal, but she also is in support of it. And this is the view from the right-of-way. Again, it's tucked back there and would not be very visible from the right-of-way. Here's the existing bump out on the other side of the home. It's already fairly close to this concrete wall here. And here, as you can see, is the AC and electrical equipment. So putting anything here is pretty much out of the question without rewiring the entire house and also replumbing the house because the washer and dryer where it currently exists are plumbed, and to put it anywhere else would require that as well. Here is the pantry. As you can see, these are stacked, and this is an afterthought. This board right here that runs along here is to minimize the fact that the floor there is not level because it wasn't designed for heavy washer and dryer equipment, and so they rock violently whenever you turn them on. And so that minimizes it a little bit, but it's not ideal because the floor is not, it wasn't contemplated that there would be washers and dryers, a while ago when they didn't have these things. So I'd like to go through the variance criteria. To save time, I'm not going to read the criteria out loud word for word, but I'll just summarize them and then I'll discuss how we address the criteria. The first criteria is that the hardship or practical difficulty is unique and singular with respect to the property. The existing home structure, as I've walked you through the floor plan, I've walked you through the different architectural features that are unique to this home in terms of the roof line and where things are located in the house. That creates the practical difficulty that Ms. Maney faces. Simply, there was no place contemplated in this house for a washer and dryer because it wouldn't have been contemplated at the time that the house was built. But we live in 2020, for better or worse, and washer and dryer is a critical staple of modern life. Nobody's hanging their clothes outside or washing them in a tub, and this is not sufficient. It's not a functioning laundry room. It's not even a bad laundry room. It's simply not a laundry room at all. And other homes in the surrounding area have entirely different floor plans. The Craftsman style is eclectic. It's a very unique, each house is unique, and so they may have room somewhere else for a laundry room that wouldn't require a variance, but we simply are not in that position here. The second criterion is that the practical difficulty does not result from the actions of the applicant. A self-created hardship, of course, is not a variance justification, but of course this house was built the way it was built. Ms. Maney had nothing to do with it, and what she's requesting is independent of, she's requesting something that, she didn't create the problem. The third criterion, the variance will not substantially interfere with or injure health, safety, welfare of those who would be affected by the variance. Ms. McLaney, again, she's the person who would be the most affected by this. She's in full support of it, and she's buffered by the 6-foot wall. You can't even see each other up the first floor elevations of the two different houses because of that wall. And it's a minimal addition. It's 47 square feet and partly within the existing footprint of the home. The fourth criterion, the variance is in harmony with the general intent and purpose of the zoning code and the Tampa Comprehensive Plan. The addition will complement the historic character of the home because there's a bump out on one side, there will be a bump out on the other side, and as I'll show you in a few photos, if I hopefully have time, I've taken photos of a lot of surrounding properties in the Craftsman style that have all kinds of bump outs, just different massing and elevations, very eclectic, and this would be right in line with that. And the goal of the Historic Preservation District is to ensure protection and preservation of the district and to maintain the values of the homes. Adding a functional laundry room will increase the value of this home as well. The fifth criterion, allowing the variance will result in substantial justice being done, balancing both the public benefit intended by the code and also with the individual practical difficulties that Ms. Maney faces. Again, as I said, the Historic Preservation District purpose is to preserve, but not to require homeowners to never be able to update their homes to modern times. It's been 100 years since this home was built, and things have changed. The surrounding property owners will not experience any adverse impacts, so the public benefit is that we are bringing a home up to modern standards, preserving its relevancy into the 21st century, and allowing Ms. Maney to have a staple of modern life in her home. Finally, sixth criterion, the variance, if granted, will allow development that is consistent with the design standards and is compatible with the historic pattern. As I'll show you in the certificate of appropriateness, the bump out is going to look and use the materials that are exactly the same as the home. It will be consistent, and also the style, it'll be consistent with the Craftsman style. I will show you some photos of houses up and down some of the surrounding blocks in the Hyde Park area that I took, riding my bird scooter around. So this, I think, is a really good example of what we're proposing here, other than the direction of the roof is going to be different than that. But as you can see, this person has a bump out. You can see where the roof kind of cuts in and jumps back out. This is from the right-of-way. This is more or less what we're proposing, but it's a small addition at the back of the house that is not very visible from the right-of-way. You can see behind the bushes here, here's a bump out with kind of the type of roof we're proposing, where it is in the opposite direction from the main roof of the house. And this is just to show, again, the eclectic fabric of the Hyde Park neighborhood. Some of these bump outs extend all the way up to the second elevation. Some of them are very small. Here's another one with a very different roof line, but it extends here, and you can see windows, kind of like what we're proposing, where we've got windows on the north elevation. Here are two bump outs facing each other. And finally, here's two more examples of various massing and stepped massing here on both of these homes. I think are very good examples of the Craftsman style. So just to, oh, sorry, I don't know what I'm doing. In sum, Ms. Smeedy is committed to preserving this home. She loves this home. It is her primary residence and will be so for the foreseeable future. She simply needs to update it with a minimal addition that is designed specifically to be the most physically and visually consistent with the interior and exterior of the home. It will not adversely affect neighbors or the overall historic preservation district, and it will allow Ms. Smeedy the full use and enjoyment of her home. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, staff will present the staff report.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila. At this time, I would request that you limit your questions to the variance portion of this request. And also, I'd like to enter into the record, since we opened the public hearing, that this is the neighbor to the north that wrote the letter of support, and this is in the file.
At this point, we will open the public hearing to any public comment. Right, seeing none, the commissioners will now ask questions, if anyone would like to, for the variance only.
I have no question.
No question.
No questions, thank you.
I have no questions as well. Well, in that case, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for a rebuttal.
No, thank you.
Okay. We'll close this portion of the public hearing, and now the commissioners will discuss the case. Would anyone like to begin?
I don't have any comment.
No one?
I have no comments.
Commissioner Sutton?
I wish to reiterate my comments from our last review of this site. I understand the vernacular of our bungalows and traditional buildings in Hyde Park, where there are the bump outs, if you will. But what we're dealing with here, I think, is a problem, not so much that that we're dealing with a bump out here, is that the fact that the existing building in and of itself and its site and its siting on its property is currently conforming to the requirements of its zoning, of its setbacks, and is a contributing property to the historic district. I've not yet seen sufficient evidence that would suggest that the alleged hardship or practical difficulty is actually unique and singular to this property. I further see that this hardship or practical difficulty as presented really is a result of the desire to have a particular addition which is not in conformance to the setbacks established for properties in Hyde Park. So I'm having a hard time looking at this and saying, yes, we can do something different here, though it is non-conforming, when we don't really permit that with the exception of some very, very dire and unique circumstances, which are not shown.
Okay. Any additional comments?
You guys are gonna kill me. And the last time you visited us, you explained the oak tree that had a conflict with adding to the back. May I ask to reopen the case so that she can discuss the oak tree?
Before you ask for that, I'd like to bring up the point that the demolition and approval of a new accessory structure also occurred during that hearing. And there was an opportunity at some point for us, for the commission to ask if it had ever been considered that the use be a component of that. And there are multiple variables here where we could do a back and forth. But again, I would tend to agree with my fellow commissioner, Stu Sutton, that some of this is indeed something that was brought on by the current homeowner, in that other options were available, potentially. So you certainly can ask to have it reopened and talk about the tree, but.
I move to reopen the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. I'm going to reopen, and then if you want to ask a question.
Yeah, can you explain to the commissioners who have not seen this case previously why there is, why the location of your laundry room is a hardship and cannot be placed in another location on the site?
Sure, thank you. So I'll put the total site plan that we have here. This was what we first brought for the original hearing. So this garage was approved and is being constructed. So there is a 32-inch grand oak tree here whose canopy spans the majority of this portion of this site. So, you know, its canopy coming here, it's the 20-foot protective radius. That's a reason, another reason besides the windows and, you know, the historic look of the back of the house, aside from the deck, that it would not fit in this area. And nor over here, also aside from the fact that there's the AC unit and the electrical wiring there, and the fact that the house is not plumbed there. So the tree contributes to the fact that nothing can go here. You know, the roof line, it's going to have to be higher because it's, as I explained earlier, it's the laundry room were built in this area to match the height of the ceilings in the rest of the house. That lower roof line is going to have to come up in whatever portion the laundry room would go in. So that pretty much gets rid of this entire area of the property. Of course, the garage was built specifically to ensure that it was in line with the zoning code. It was reviewed by staff for those requirements to make sure that there was the appropriate spacing between the deck and the laundry room, or I'm sorry, the garage. As you can see, it didn't change much from the footprint other than just get wider and move away from the wall there. And to address the point of being created by the applicant, this situation is not created by the applicant. A variance, if the criteria meant that any time an applicant wanted to build something but had to ask for a variance to do it, no one would ever get a variance. If I have a grand tree in my yard and I want to build somewhere, that would be, under that logic, it would be considered a hardship created by myself simply because I want to build. They could say, well, you don't have to build there. You don't have to build at all. Well, I can't build because of this pre-existing condition, but it's my home and I want to add on to it. I need a variance to do that. So you know, as an advocate for my client, I can't not say something about that criteria being characterized in a certain way that is not applied to other people who get variances, because any action of the applicant under that logic would be considered a self-created hardship. So this is definitely the same thing we see with any other request for a variance. Thank you.
Since we have it open, could you show the floor plans? And just, because you did go through this quickly, but kind of run through on previous meetings, you looked at where it could be located. It was in your hardship packet, but kind of in the, you know, essence of time, you kind of skipped over it. Could you just run through why kind of the washer and dryer have to be located where they are?
Sure. Sorry, I'm going to put this down behind my floor plan real quick. So here is the floor plan again. Again, as I mentioned earlier, this is where the front door is, and as you can see, the flow is kind of straight through to the back door. Because after that point, the rest of the house is pretty much set the way it is. There's a little hallway here where you've got just a very small space to basically turn around and go to the bedrooms and the bathroom. And the upper portion, as you can see, this is the second story. It's about here, because the stairs are right here and they go up. And so it's about here. So all of the bathrooms are kind of stacked in the same spot, and they're pretty maxed out in terms of what's in the bathrooms. They were small to begin with, and they have, you know, a tub, sink, toilet. So they're very, very crowded. The dining room and living room are connected. They're only separated by a small half wall. And then this is a kind of a buffet area that's built into the house. And so it's a countertop, and there's a sink here as well. This is basically the galley kind of kitchen area where you've got the refrigerator, stove, lots of countertop cabinetry, and the pantry, which was clearly a pantry because it's in the kitchen, but whoever owned the house before Miss Maney, or who knows how long ago, they kind of crammed the washer and dryer in there. And as I mentioned, the floor is not really made for it, and it doesn't work very well, and there's no way to unstack them, certainly, because there isn't room. And stack washers and dryers are not that safe, especially when they're rocking violently. This is a den, a small den for an office. That's where those 3 windows are, that nice kind of arrangement of windows, and this is where the door is. So there's already plumbing here for the washer and dryer, because there are a washer and dryer there, and also, you know, you've got the kitchen utility area, and then there's plumbing for the bathrooms, and that's it. So if we were to put it anywhere else, aside from all of the other reasons, we would have to replumb the house. That would be extensive. That would cause serious alterations to the house. And then to put it somewhere else in addition to the plumbing would cause alterations to the house, whether it's removing the door, which was suggested. And I simply think that that would be a terrible thing to do, because again, not only would it disrupt the interior flow of the house, but it would seriously change the back elevation of the house. Same with the windows. The windows are such an integral part of the look of the house. And again, there's an existing bump out here, as you can see. Don't know when that was built, when it was created, but I'd like to point out that it also has a reduced setback from the wall along the south side. So the house is not actually in total conformity with setbacks. The existing bump out is actually quite close to the wall there. So the bump out here, which would be even smaller, would be consistent with that look, and also with the fact that there's a reduced setback with the walls. If there's anything else that I can highlight.
Are there any additional questions for the applicant?
I have one. So you said that you are constructing an accessory structure. Was it ever considered to put the laundry room in that structure?
Well, the goal of that, here I'll show you the site plan again. That was a shed garage, and so it's a garage. It's going to be a garage, a 2-car garage, because the original garage was so narrow it couldn't even have a car parked in it. So, I mean, it's being expanded to fit a car reasonably, but also, again, with the plumbing issue, extending plumbing through the house, it would also reduce the space of the garage and kind of defeat the purpose of expanding the garage. So then maybe she would have had to build a 3-car garage, which wouldn't be possible because of the tree there, because you'd have to come out even farther. So, logistically, and also with respect to having to plumb the garage, it just wouldn't make sense.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. At this point, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for a rebuttal.
No, thank you.
All right. Close this portion of the public hearing, and the commissioners will now discuss the case again.
I have no additional comment.
I definitely understand the constraints of the property, but at the same time, I'm fearful of setting a precedence, because I don't believe necessarily a laundry room rises to the level of a hardship. Again, this site does have challenges, but I think that, they obviously have a laundry facility in their home, even though it's not ideal by any means. I'm fearful that in the future this would set a precedence, because a lot of folks, in the historic district have challenges with these sites, and including additional square footage. So I wouldn't be in support.
personally understand the kind of concerns that my fellow commissioners have. I know on previous cases in this historic district, we have, granted variances for projects that were, an argument was made that in order to have a sufficient size house, the house needed to grow by multiple hundred square feet in order to accommodate additional bedrooms, additional whatever it might be. So we've granted variances in order to have a house that kind of fit the neighborhood and the scale and the size. I think the concerns of where else you could put the washer and dryer in the house, if you put it anywhere else on the inside except where it sits now, you're changing the historic flow and kind of the design of the house. If you put it anywhere on the exterior besides maybe where it sits, if you put it on the back, you're changing that. So at some point, I think we're going to have to, or at some point, this house will need to expand in order to have that washer and dryer. And in my opinion, I think that where it sits now and what's proposed with this variance is the best location, but I understand the concerns that commissioners have. Are there any additional comments or questions or
I have none.
discussions?
No.
All right. Well, would a commissioner like to make a motion for the variance in specific?
I move that the variance request for case ARC 20-283 for the property located at 613 South Oregon Avenue be granted as depicted in the site plan presented at public hearing for a north side yard setback from 7 feet to 5 feet with an encroachment of 2 feet for eaves and gutters. Based upon the petitioner meeting the burden of proof with regard to the 6 hardship criteria set forth in section 27-114D of the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances for granting variances as stated in the evidence provided in this public hearing, specifically that the variance is in harmony with and serves the general intent and purpose of this chapter and the adopted Tampa Comprehensive Plan.
Do I have a second?
Without hearing a second to the motion, that motion fails, so the commissioner would have to make another motion.
Oh, I have a question. Can I second the motion?
You could second the motion since she made the motion.
All right. I'll second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Against?
Against?
Aye.
All right. Hands.
If we could just, for the record, have a show of hands for the nays, please. Thank you.
Would a commissioner like to make a different motion?
I move for the variance request for case ARC 20-283 for the property located at 613 South Oregon Avenue in the Hyde Park Historic District with an encroachment on the north side yard setback from 7 feet to 5 feet with an encroachment of 2 feet for eaves and gutters be denied due to the failure of the petitioner to meet the burden of proof with regard to the 6 hardship criteria set forth in section 27-114D of the City Tampa Code of Ordinances, specifically that the alleged hardship or practical difficulty has not been sufficiently shown to be unique and singular with respect to the property, and that the hardship or practical difficulty is a result from the intended actions of the applicant, specifically with respect to the proposed addition.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Nay. Motion passes. Thank you.
With that, just one point of business. Would the agent request to continue the certificate of appropriateness to a specific date or renotice in a future date?
I would think to renotice. Thank you.
Thank you.
the chair if we could take a quick break.
We can, we're also gonna have a break after this one, but we can take a 5-minute recess if we need to.
Oh, we are?
Yes. That's okay. We can take a recess.
We'll have a
Thank you,
quick
everyone, sorry.
5-minute recess. Thank you.
I'm sorry, the clerk, I'm sorry,
Yes,
yes,
sorry.
yes, yes.
She starts the recorder. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. This is for the address of 1905 West Bristol Avenue. This parcel is referred to as Lot A in the Hyde Park Historic District. This request in front of you this evening is for new construction for a single-family residential structure with an accessory structure attached to it. This was part of a larger PD plan that I'm going to share with you at this time. The past action that this came forward in August 5th, 2020. There's a three-prong approach to that request. This is a contributing structure that received an addition, that received final approval on that date. There was new construction on this parcel here that received final approval. And then this parcel here, which was referred to as Lot A, was continued. So this is the only portion that's in front of you this evening. Part of the overall PD project. This site plan was reviewed by the zoning department and it was approved as presented. Just to share a couple of additional photos with you. This is our vicinity map. The arrow shows the property in question. It does abut the crosstown, which runs to the west and to the north of the property in question. This is showing the 1929 Sanborn map. This was the contributing structure that received the addition, the final approval. The shaded area is the portion in front of you this evening. This was the other leg to the PD that was approved over here. And currently there is a non-contributing structure that was built within 20 years. Excuse me. This is just an overhead shot at the existing condition. This is a non-contributing structure that I'll show you a picture of. That is the construction in front of you this evening is taking some of its cues from. This is a period structure, contributing structure. And then the site this evening is in the shaded box. The contributing structure that received the approval is here. Property in question is right behind this, as indicated on the plan, and this is a Spanish-style house that is receiving, the request in front of you this evening is receiving a lot of the requests from this style here. And having said that, I will hand it over to the agent at this time.
Thank you. My name is Joel Acosta, and my wife Christine and I are here presenting our home. a property that we own. We're looking to build a new structure on this lot. I really appreciate the time of all the commissioners this evening. You may recall that we were here in early August with respect to this project, and you gave us a lot of very good feedback, which we have taken back to our design team, and we have incorporated into our designs, and we are looking forward to sharing that with you this evening. We will be presenting comprehensively. We will go through the entire presentation. I know that not all the commissioners were with us in August, so in the spirit of completeness, we will go through everything. There are some items that I will spend more time on than others, including a portion towards the end where I'm going to address some of the specific comments from the commissioners and how we've attempted to address those in these new design plans. So a little bit of background, because I think it's important with respect to this project. My wife Christine and I have owned the property. When I purchased the property in the year 2000, we were married shortly thereafter, and we've owned it as a married couple for many years. We legally separated the lot several years ago. In the front, there's the historic structure, and in the back, this is a vacant parcel. This is a vacant parcel next to the Crosstown Expressway. Okay? Some might consider it a marginal piece of land, but we do not consider it. We consider it a very valuable piece of land, an important piece of land, contributing to urban development, contributing to the Hyde Park neighborhood. Our intent is to build a new home, and we've been working with a team of designers and other professionals to help us get this project to where it is today. Our architect, Ken Garcia, is here with us this evening. He has spent a lot of time on this project. We greatly appreciate his many contributions. He has a long history in the city of Tampa in preservation, but just a couple of the highlights in his career. He served on the Barrio Latino Commission. He served as preservation architect for the Lehman House in Hyde Park, and he continues to serve as an architectural historian and consultant to the Chislers and the University of Tampa. Also, my parents, Irene and Della Costa, have participated significantly in this project. Just a little bit of background. My profession is I'm an attorney, I'm a tax lawyer. I will hopefully be able to describe enough of the architecture this evening to convey my point across. But the real architectural talent and design talent in the Acosta family is my dad, Della Costa, who has a long history and lots of experience in the city in historic preservation. And so much so that he literally wrote a book on Tampa's Hyde Park, which I have with me this evening. And I can't think of a better person to help advise us on this project than my dad. And don't discount the contributions of my mom as well. She knows this stuff extremely well, and she has contributed quite a bit to the project as well. I'd like to thank our builder, David Farrell, who has a lot of experience in the district, as well as the civil engineers. You see the site plan and the many complexities that go into a project such as this. Matt Campo and Jesse Blackstock have done a great job, as well as the lawyers who have helped us navigate many of the issues, David Smith and Julia Mandel. So, starting with the site plan, it's inescapable to recognize the impact of the Crosstown Expressway on this parcel. So how does one design a high-quality home given these logistics? The Crosstown has many elements that must be considered. Site, obviously the site of the Crosstown, as well as the noise, and as well as the light pollution generated from the Crosstown. Recall that we legally split these parcels several years ago. Here's a copy of the PD that separated the parcels. This is the historic structure down here. Here's the line separating the parcels. This is the parcel that we're going to be discussing this evening. This parcel is a companion parcel, a brother-sister parcel, you may describe it as.
And this parcel has many of the same design features as the parcel that we're going to be discussing this evening, and it was approved during the August public hearing. Let's take a moment to discuss the PD and what this means. The design guidelines have 10 criteria that must be considered as part of Can you zoom out, please? 10, perhaps 11, 12 criteria to be considered by this commission. Items 1 through 5 have been met as part of the PD process. So we are dealing tonight with the materials, the trim and detail, the facade and proportions, the entrances and porch projections, the roof forms, and the architectural details. A lot of the site elements have already been approved as part of the PD. Here's a letter from zoning confirming that we are consistent with the zoning requirements as approved in the PD. This is our architectural site plan. This will be the site plan that I am referring to for the remainder of my presentation. You will see that access to the home comes from this public alley. This public alley is accessed from Bristol Avenue. It comes across an easement over this parcel into the driveway, into the garage structure. This is a 2-story garage structure with a bonus room on top. Very relevant in these days where many folks are working from home. There's an extra bonus space above the garage which could be used for a variety of purposes, including working from home or some extra living space. There is a courtyard. There's a loggia that connects the garage structure to the primary structure. Here are some views. Here are some views from the property. Now, these views were taken from the property looking out because, frankly, there was no safe way to take these pictures from the crosstown. Believe me, we tried, we thought about it. We couldn't take meaningful pictures from the crosstown. So this is a view looking north. This is a view looking west. Yes, there's vegetation that you'll see. I'm sorry, there's some glare. I'll move this a bit. But you can see the traffic and you can see the crosstown being right there. The garage structure is going to provide a nice buffer to the primary structure. This is a picture taken at approximately 10 o'clock at night. Let me get rid of the glare so that you can see kind of what we're working with respect to this parcel. Notice that there is very little of this parcel is public facing. Okay, very little is public facing. Regardless, very high quality construction, very thoughtful design that I hope that you guys will agree with us on that. But you'll see that this parcel that abuts the crosstown is nonetheless a high quality Hyde Park structure as you would expect. Here's a landscape presentation of how the site may look. And I'd like to walk the commissioners briefly through the surrounding structures, counterclockwise. So here we have the structure that we're considering this evening. Here we have the Crosstown Expressway. Here we have a contributing structure at 1907 West Bristol Avenue. The property owners are my parents. They're here this evening and they are in support of this project. Going to the south, we have 1905 West Bristol Avenue, the historic structure, in addition, that was approved during our last public hearing. Going counterclockwise, we have a home built in 1997 by my parents. This house shares some but not all of the features with the two houses on the north side of the property, the brother-sister houses. Continuing to the immediate east, we have a property that has a Mediterranean Revival home that was approved in the August public hearing. So, again, very little of the project is public facing. The resident is going to travel up Bristol Avenue, up this public alley. At this point where the resident turns to the west, a portion, a very small portion of the eastern elevation will be visible. There's a nice sculptural staircase and some nice details here that will present itself. And then the resident will come into the property, and this will be the quote-unquote front of the property. So how does one design in this space, and what style does one use? Again, we have the benefit of some precedent with the companion home that was approved in August. This is a Mediterranean Revival home in the Spanish eclectic style. Mediterranean Revival architecture is approved within the district. It's also recognized in the Field Guide to American Homes. More specifically, this is in the Spanish eclectic subtype of the Mediterranean Revival homes. Now, this home that we are looking to build is a simpler implementation, a simple, elegant implementation of Mediterranean Revival style. A minimalist presentation, as you may want to refer to it. So in the field guide, we drew inspiration from these two homes. Notice the relatively simple facade, the low roof overhangs. There is a little bit of ironwork. There are some other decorative details. This is another one that we looked at closely. You can see the asymmetry in the windows. Again, the low roof overhang, the stucco. So in the presentation that we have, the elements of Mediterranean Revival, Spanish eclectic that you will see are minimal roof overhangs, low pitch roof, red tile roof, asymmetrical facade, stucco, grillwork, decorative ceramics, a loggia, and a courtyard. I'm going to flip through a couple pages of other homes in the district that share some similar qualities. These are Mediterranean Revival homes with hip roofs. These are Mediterranean Revival homes that have some of the simpler design elements. I'm going to now go to my elevations. I'm going to first present the north elevation. So looking into the property, one could consider this the front of the home. Remember, the layout of the structures was determined by the PD. So we have our two-story garage here, and the primary structure recessed behind the garage. Could we zoom in a bit, please, on this drawing? Thank you. Perfect. Thank you very much. You know, keep in mind that to view the house, elevations can be difficult to read in any case, but this is even more difficult. For example, a typical house in Hyde Park, you could go on the sidewalk, and then you could go, into the parkway, and then you could go out into the street to get some perspective on this home. To view this home from this perspective, you would be in the middle of the Crosstown Expressway. So, you know, this view is going to present itself as a resident drives into the property. Notice some of the tile work that's included on this design. Notice the trellis that's included up here. Notice the ironwork. So we have a 2-story garage. We have 2 windows up top. We have barrel tile roof. We have a masonry stairwell here on the east side of the property. Okay, I'd like to spend a moment to talk about the main entrance to the home. You'll see that to the right of the garage, there is a gateway to enter a courtyard. So a resident will walk, well, a resident, probably more likely a visitor in this case, would walk through the gate into the courtyard and into the front of the home. I have a hidden elevation which shows the front of the home. On the main structure, we have some additional decorative tile work. Tile work is significant, it's important here. It shows the entry points into the house. It shows the entrance to the house. Welcome to the house. As you approach the house, you see tile work here. As you approach the front gate, you see these tiles, and you see, as you'll see when we get into the interior of this courtyard, some additional tile work to escort the guest into the front of the home. Very briefly, I'd like to show just kind of a landscape rendering. It's a touch fuzzy. I don't know if that's just with the zoom, if we can clarify that. Thank you. That's fantastic. Thank you. And I know landscaping is a little bit beyond what we're looking to review here, but I show it because I think it's helpful. You can see some of the green space. These green dots are existing landscaping, but this greenery over the garage, this trellis, provides a nice feature, some nice detail. You can see here the red tiles. You can see here the lamp. You can see here the ironwork, additional tiles. I'm going to move next to the north hidden elevation. Okay, so back to the site plan, we're going to be looking at the house this way, right? But the viewer would be blocked by this garage structure. So this hidden elevation looks basically from this point into the primary structure. And you can see we have some asymmetrical windows. We have the tile work. Look at we have a very nice loggia that provides not only an important element in Mediterranean Revival style architecture, but it also provides a nice little covered outdoor area for the residents of this home. Again, you see the tile work, and just to be very clear here, this area would be a courtyard. Some landscaping, how it may present once the house is complete. I'm moving next to the west elevation. So we're looking this way onto the home. Okay, so again, very crosstown facing. Need to keep that in mind. So on the garage structure, we're proposing blind windows. I have pictures of examples in the district that use blind windows. We have the courtyard wall. We have the loggia that provides many nice architectural details here. You see the tile work. You see the iron work that we will see again on our east elevation. We see the windows up here. Notice the asymmetry on the windows. One of the comments that we received in August, which was well taken, was the sizing and placement of the windows. We spent a lot of time with respect to windows and how they should be placed and how that design can be improved. And we feel like this is an improvement from our August presentation. How do you decide where windows go? What influences that? Well, of course, it's an interplay between the interior and the exterior. Your interior floor plan and how your house lays out, as well as the exterior elements of the site plan, right? And that marriage between the two. And we've worked hard to try to balance that. Hopefully we've made some progress in that area. Okay, we're next going to go to the south elevation, so we're looking this way on the property. Okay, this is the backyard. This is the simpler elevation. We again have blind windows, asymmetrical. Note also the water table that carries it's all the way along the primary structure. It's a nice architectural element that's often found in Mediterranean Revival, Spanish eclectic homes. I'm going to move next to the east elevation. We'll do quickly the south hidden elevation. So this is going to be this view. Again, you can see the loggia, and here's the other side of the gate to enter the property, and we have blind windows. Notice also we have this awning that you will see again on our east elevation. Okay, so now we're moving to our east elevation. Okay, so a portion of this will be pseudo-public facing, right? The driver over the private easement to access this property will see a portion of this east elevation, okay? I'm going to read it from north to south. We have this stairwell, proposed masonry stairwell, a nice solid sculptural element, a nice design feature of this home. We have, again, a tile signaling an entrance. We have a window. We have a door accessing some storage, a light fixture. We have this awning. This is a new element added to the design over the door into the bonus room. As we move through the loggia, we have two scuppers. We have this opening as well as the ironwork. New to this presentation, this ironwork was not here in August. At least it wasn't on the drawings. So we see the loggia with this ironwork, and then again we see some asymmetrical windows, a blind window. These windows changed significantly since the August presentation. So this view, very little public facing if at all. Look at the many different planes and dimensions it shows. We have the we have the garage, we have the stairwell, we have the loggia, we have the primary structure. I'd like to point out the mechanicals. Because they do present on the east side, although they're not on the elevations. Our mechanicals are here, and we plan to screen them with landscaping. Here's the landscaping plan with respect to the east elevation. Again, the red dots show landscaping that is already there. You can see a good bit of the landscaping is already in place. I'd like to go through some of the architectural details. If you could zoom out, please. Barrel tile roof, stucco. Windows 1/1, nice high quality window. Here's the spec sheet. Here are the blind windows. This is a picture in the district. Notice the depth that concrete masonry block construction gives us. Notice the shadows, notice the contrast. This is an example of the door going into the primary home as well as the bonus room above the garage. Here's the spec sheet for the door. This is the door going into the shed next to the garage. This is an example of ironwork with respect to the main gate entering the property. Here is an example of a very simple garage door, again, facing the crosstown. We want something simple, solid, that is going to present well in this setting. Exterior wall lighting, hardware, stucco wall, courtyard wall. Here's an example of what the courtyard may look like. Here's an example of the stairs. This is an example of how the entryway will work into the house. Notice we have a garage. Notice here you have our wall will be a touch larger, but you'll notice that a visitor, it'll be obvious to the visitor that to the right of the garage, that's how you enter the courtyard and hence the house. scuppers, trellis, ironwork, tiles. I have some examples here. These are decent examples. This picture is probably a little bit closer to what we're looking to implement. Water table zoomed in, water table zoomed out. Going through our wall section, we have a barrel tile roof, we have a fascia board, an eave board. Those will be made of wood. We have concrete block construction with painted stucco. As we go down the wall section, we have a false window. Notice the 2-inch recess that the high-quality masonry construction allows us to achieve. A simple sill, concrete block, painted stucco. Here we have a 1/1 window with a simple sill, block with painted stucco. We have our water table terminating at grade. This wall section presents a door. We have our roof, eave board, fascia, eave board made of wood, concrete block, painted stucco, 1/1 window, simple sill, block, painted stucco, into a door, down to grade. So my interpretation of the August hearing, we really appreciate the many comments that this commission had. We took them to heart. We spent a lot of time reviewing this design. We like this design. It makes sense with the companion house next door, and so we did not want to change it very significantly. And this commission was very clear that they liked the direction that we were going. However, the design perhaps was lacking certain details that the commission wanted to see at the ARC level. If the commissioners feel that additional details are needed, we welcome any conditions that you think are appropriate to help us move the project forward. Hopefully you'll see the time and the attention that we've given to this and our commitment to a high quality project for our family's legacy, and the fact that this is a very important project for our family. We resisted the temptation to over-decorate. We talked about certain elements with our design team that we decided, that may be going too far with the minimalist design that we're attempting to achieve. But I would like to point out a handful of things, 9 things, perhaps more, but 9 things on my list that we've added to address many of the comments that we received in August. The metal trellis over the garage is a new feature. The decorative tiles are a new feature. The trellis over the garage, the decorative tiles, the grill work over the loggia, the grill work over the opening in the loggia. We refined the scuppers. There's an awning over the second floor above the garage, this element. We refined the pathway to the front entry gate. We've centered it. It was off to the east side of the, to the east side of the property. We spent a lot of time redesigning this walkway and centered it. We refined window placement. We added additional details regarding lighting, and we've also added the landscape view. We feel that these are appropriate additions. While perhaps additional details are appropriate, and perhaps they will be made in a future phase of the design process, we feel that this is an improved design. We think it fits well into the Mediterranean Revival Spanish eclectic home. And overall, we feel it's a very interesting project and a clever architectural solution to a unique parcel. We greatly appreciate the many contributions and are looking forward to achieving a minimalist, simple, yet elegant design. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, staff will present the staff report.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila, I'm staff with Historic Preservation. In reviewing this request, this is consistent with the PD that was approved through City Council and what was presented this evening. If you look at the application and standards with the Hyde Park Design Guidelines on page 3, the first 5 bullet items address the PD that have already been approved with the massing, the scale, and the location of the structures that were indicated this evening. Items 6 through 11 is what's on your plate this evening. Staff's finding this application is consistent with the Hyde Park Design Guidelines with the style that was established this evening. The applicant went through the bullet items on page 3 and page 4, and he addressed them all. And having stated that, he also incorporated a lot of the comments from prior public hearing. So having said that, I'll be here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we'll open the public comment, or the public hearing to any public comment. If there's anyone that would like to. All right, seeing none. The commissioners will now ask questions. Commissioner Clausmith, would you like to begin?
I only have one question. Do you have an image that indicates how you plan on detailing, or how the designer plans on detailing the openings at the doors and windows? And I'm meaning from the transition of the wall, the stucco, into the window or door frame.
So we have that on our wall section. We have a door in our wall section.
So it's different from looking at a wall section. What I'm trying to see is the quality of the detailing and the finishing of the material. So it might be buried in one of the images that you showed of a prior, an existing property within the district that historically indicates how that would be done, or something similar that has already been approved within the district. I'm just trying to get a sense of that quality of finishing that the project intends to have.
Sure. Specifically with respect to the doors.
No, it's any opening, whether it's a door or window. I'm trying to understand how you're going to finish that stucco as it returns to either a window or a door. It should be a fairly similar condition historically,
Sure.
but I need clarification.
We're very fortunate in that we are planning to build with concrete block. So concrete block allows those windows to be recessed. They allow a nice contrast. So we're, again, simple, elegant, minimalist is what we're looking to achieve. So those windows are going to carry that through. However, we are planning to spend the money on a concrete block construction, which improves the whole project. And it also improves the quality of what those windows are going to look like, because you're going to have about a 2-inch relief from the wall to the window. With respect to the doors, there's 3 doors. One is under a loggia. We've got a loggia here in this parcel, right? So you're going to go through the courtyard into the loggia to enter the front door. Very Frank Lloyd Wright-like, right? So that's going to be a beautiful detail in the overall design of the project. We also have an entry door on the 2nd story of the garage, right, above that. And prior to, in our August presentation, we had just the door. Now we have a nice decorative awning, which is also in line with the brother-sister project next door that has a similar design feature. Now,
not to interrupt, I apologize. I think what the commissioner was asking was, do you have either a photo or a drawing showing what that actual condition or detail will look like? So maybe you have an existing photo of your parents' house, or a different photo that you could show.
If you need to confer with your designer or designers, please do so. But yes, exactly. I didn't want to break into your explanation, but.
Okay, so I think the best I could do with what I have in front of me is, we have these blind windows that very clearly show, kind of the depth of these windows.
That's, yeah, I understand the depth.
And then we also have the wall sections which show the detail.
I'm sorry, but it's still not being made clear to me. I'm trying to understand how the stucco finishes
Hang on one second.
Yeah, thank you. I know Dell can explain it.
So these are two examples of the doors, and the windows are very similar. There's going to be stucco block with very simple, recess into the door or the window.
Okay, thank you. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
Question on the garage door. I know that was discussed a little at the last hearing, but
Yes.
I see that that wasn't changed, so I was just wondering why.
So the garage door, again, we've got the Crosstown Expressway going right out of that garage door. So we want something simple and we want something solid for that presentation. So we've actually changed that elevation quite a bit in that we have the trellis with proposed landscaping that's going to go on there. We also have new lighting details on that elevation, as well as tile work. These are okay tiles, right? The ones we're looking to use are a little bit different.
Okay, that's the only question I had, thanks.
Thank you.
Sir, I do have a question. I note that you've gone through quite a bit of massaging with your water table. You have it on your main structure, you have it on your garden wall, you have it on your entry walls, you have it on your loggia. Is there a reason why you don't have it on your accessory structure and its stair?
So, well, the accessory structure is at grade. So the water table is intended to present the raised floor above grade. So with the garage being on grade, we discussed it as a design team because that was something that came up during the August meeting, and we decided that we should leave it on the primary structure as well as the loggia, but given that the garage was at grade, we felt it appropriate to not carry it through there.
Thank you very much.
I have a couple questions. So on one of your elevations, I believe it's the east elevation with the kind of the landscape that's drawn in, it looked like you were illustrating that a fence would be put onto the house. Is there a fence included in this project or no?
This east elevation,
Yes, sir.
so on this side, there's no fence proposed here, okay? There is a courtyard wall here that separates this space from this space. Again, this being a PD, where we can, we're trying to preserve some green space. In this space in here, we are going to attempt to maintain as green space as much as possible. Now, over time, there's probably going to be a fence here, right?
So I guess my question is for the
Oh,
proposed.
this right here. This is an existing wall here. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear on that.
Okay, so for the proposed project for this one, there is no proposed fence that's going to be included on this, correct?
On the east elevation, no. On the crosstown, there will be a masonry wall.
Okay, but not anything besides that courtyard wall, correct?
There is a fence on the east side of the property as well. Excuse me, the west side of the property as well. But I think your question is on the east side of the property, and no, we're not proposing to have a fence there.
Okay, I guess my question is for any sides of the property, will you be adding a new fence besides that wall on the courtyard?
So we probably will add a fence at some point here. This area we want to keep open, and we need to keep open for some comments from the fire marshal. So, but I do anticipate that there will be either landscape fence or some sort of fence right here. So we would have this fence here. This is an existing fence. This concrete wall is part of the PD.
Okay. So then just if there's one of the comments that you may receive is since we don't have the fence details, that may be something that we'll ask for. If we could look at your north elevation with the garage on it, please.
Okay, sure. Is the landscaping helpful or is it distractive?
Either way, doesn't matter.
Okay. I'll just put it without the landscaping.
That's fine. So I do want to commend you on, and the designer on this, that obviously we can see the change in the level of detail that happened from previous meeting to this one. So I do appreciate that. A lot of the comments were picked up.
Thank you.
I do go back to Spanish Eclectic and Mediterranean. One of the things that it does is it celebrates the entrance. So the idea that the entrance is really kind of looked at as kind of that gateway into the house. And for this project, I think you have two kind of main entrances into there. One into that courtyard, which if you're seeing here, it's framed now by your gate. You have that window right behind it with the tiles. And then your second one would be into that courtyard, into that covered sort of breezeway that goes into what would be the entrance into the house or the garage.
Right, this loggia.
Yep. Was there any consideration, Ethan, you can keep it on this, was there any considerations to either look at the design similar to the house that you're drawing inspiration of that your parents have, where either that window or where you're showing those 6 tiles has a little bit more of a detail or trim or molding piece to kind of accentuate that entrance, since it's now kind of framed by that opening, or looked at to have that opening into that loggia or the breezeway as a kind of an archway or kind of curved, corners, which would be very typical for that Spanish eclectic?
So considered, yes. And, ultimately, this is where we landed. Because there's already a good bit of detail here with respect to this elevation. So your comments are well taken. And so what's the right balance? What's the right balance? I know what we're looking to achieve. We don't want to add too many details because that at some point starts to dilute the overall direction of the project. So we have this gate that goes in, and we have the tiles up top. Now coming into the loggia, so here, I mean, we're not having kind of an arched front door opening because it's a different type of design. This is more of a entrance through a loggia, through a courtyard into the home. And we showed some examples of other homes that have kind of similar features, similar entrances in Hyde Park. And, no doubt there are many Mediterranean Revival homes that have medallions, that have archways, that have additional decorative details. I'm not going to read through the ones that we added.
Yep.
I guess just kind of where we ended up. And if you'd like to propose a condition, we're happy to consider it.
I guess just to clarify, I wasn't proposing that the door has the archway. It was the actual kind of opening in the wall between the courtyard and the loggia could have that, because some of the examples that you did show where it's kind of moving from the sort of pedestrian area into that covered patio, most of those openings do kind of have that archway. So just a conversation. The stair that you have on the exterior of the building, did those change at all from last meeting in terms of the materials? Are they just poured concrete, or are the risers or treads any different materials?
Risers and treads are concrete. We did add tile work to note the entrances and to signal the entry of the property. We also added the awning, and we also added the light fixtures.
Okay. Then the door styles. So looks like you have 2 different door styles. Understandably, the 2 that are kind of we're seeing in this elevation, in the north hidden elevation and the south hidden elevation, won't really be seen by the public, but was any kind of conversations had to where it wasn't just a full kind of glass height door on that? Something maybe a little bit more historical reference?
I mean, we wanted something simple. We wanted something that looked good. So, that's what we're proposing with this design.
Okay. We go to the east elevation one more time.
Sure.
So I think you mentioned the doorway that's under, or on the first floor under the stairs, that just goes to storage under the stairs?
Correct.
Okay. Then the only other detail or question that I have is, so building off of what my fellow commissioner said, you have the water table that goes along kind of the main structure and then it goes on that sort of connector piece and stops. Does it also go on the courtyard side, or is that dying into that wall that kind of dies into the main structure?
It is carried on the courtyard wall on the
Okay,
side.
but will it be on the inside of the actual courtyard?
We weren't planning on it. I don't, you know, my limited experience, the water tables that I've seen haven't been on the interior of courtyards.
Okay.
I don't know that that's a big deal one way or the other for us.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments? All right, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for a rebuttal.
I mean, certainly no rebuttal. I really appreciate the many questions. It's a judgment call. How many details do you add, right? It's a judgment call that my wife and I have had a lot of conversations about, and we've had a lot of conversations with our design team, who I have a ton of respect and confidence in. This is ultimately where we landed. Are there some areas that perhaps, you know, need additional ceramics, or, you know, some other type of decorative material? You know, maybe we've got a long way to go for this project to get completed. I'm hopeful that you see kind of the passion and the attention that we're giving to this project, and we're going to continue to move it forward to put forth the best design that we can at the end of the day. So I appreciate your consideration of this project. You know, we're happy to work with staff to kind of, you know, address any concerns that you may have as we move further down the road. Christine, do you have anything? I think we're done. We very much thank you for your time and attention.
All right, thank you. We'll close this portion of the public hearing. Now the commissioners will discuss the case. Anyone?
Sir, commissioners, I think this project has come a long way from where we've seen it in the past month and some. I don't have an issue at all with the proposed minimalism. I think in some respects that would be very appropriate to this contemporary style of, if you will, a Spanish provincial minimalism. It's not too far away from the imagination. We're not looking at a Mediterranean or a Spanish colonial exuberism. This is very much a very pared down, and tonight presented a very well tailored proposal, and I'd like to commend you on that.
Yes, I mean, you definitely can tell you put a lot of thought in adding elements to make it more historically relevant, so I applaud you in that. The one thing I do have an issue with still, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but first of all, the orientation's kind of set of the garage, so I understand that the garage door has to be there. However, I do have an issue with it being a metal garage door, and I understand because of sound, but I'm even thinking something like wood would be a different material that would be more appropriate historically than a metal front-loaded garage, basically, is what we would be looking at. And I do understand it doesn't have a ton of pedestrian traffic in that area, nor will it. But at the same time, and I would like to hear what my other commissioners feel about that.
I agree with my fellow commissioner. That's probably the one element that I can't agree with at this time. And I find, I wasn't here for the original, so this was fresh for me. I felt like everything was pretty much on point with the style, with the district. I do, however, feel that times are changing and how we use our spaces has changed, especially in the situation we find ourselves now. More people are out and about trying to get fresh air. Probably change their routines every other day or every week because, you know, can't do the same thing over and over again, as we've come to learn. Especially in a neighborhood as well established as Hyde Park is, Old Hyde Park is. It's been a district for quite some time. People do use their alleyways, for pedestrian as well as vehicular activity. And I tend to think of, if this is your front door, then celebrate it and make it something that you're proud to come home to as well. I feel like it just doesn't present itself yet as a component of our historic fabric for that district. So that's the one element that I find that maybe you should reconsider with staff and, just look at it. And really look to your neighborhood, see what your examples are. There are plenty of Mediterranean revivals in your district and outside your district that you could go and learn from in terms of how garages are treated. And then other than that, tile features, they tend, for me at least, in what I have seen over the years, to be a personalized notion for the homeowners at the time that they're put in place. And they often are a personal signature. So just reconsider what it means to you when you drive up to your home and what it is that you're saying to yourselves, to your children, to the generations that'll follow you. And that's all I'm going to say, because houses have stories and you get to set the story. You're starting the narrative.
I agree with the garage door statement. I have similar feelings to the solid pedestrian door. Other than that, I don't have any additional comments.
I just want to reiterate that the changes that you and your team have made on this are greatly appreciated. You can definitely see the care and the appreciation for that. Fortunately, I think when you kind of give us that minimal design that's focused on details, we're going to just go at it on the details. I agree. I think the garage door and just really that front portion it just needs kind of something to celebrate. I think that Mediterranean revival piece is all about kind of that gateway into the house, and maybe it's that garage door that can just kind of push it over. And then the only other things that I think, kind of looking at staff and kind of understanding some other projects we would look at, is knowing that this is going to come through the design, but just additional details that we might want to see. So some of the details for the ironwork, the trellis, kind of how that gate is designed, and then also some of the typical details we would see at like windows and sill details, those kind of things. Otherwise, I appreciate it and I like the work. There's no additional questions. Would a commissioner like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion. I move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in ARC 20-285 for the property located at 1905 West Bristol Avenue, Lot A, in the Hyde Park Historic District, with the following conditions: that the agent owners work with staff to reselect a garage door and the pedestrian door, and that they also work through the details for the ironwork, the trellis, the gate, and sill details at the windows. Because based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines of the City of Tampa for the following reasons: that it does indeed maintain materials within the district, that the facade proportions and window patterns are consistent with the guidelines, and roof forms, and the maintenance of quality within the district.
I second that motion.
And then before we vote, do you understand the conditions that were applied? Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we're going to take a quick, maybe 5-minute recess. Thank you.
Thank you.